So we've come down to one sentence and one sentence only that will change the rest of the course for you. This is called the thesis. In general terms, we talk about SOS when we refer to what a thesis needs to be. That doesn't mean that you're panicked and that you need help. It means that you have the key ingredients. First, your thesis should be specific. That means that it refers to a specific context, a specific problem. Second, it should be an opinion. A thesis should never state the obvious. It should never be a statement of something that everybody would agree with. It should be an opinion. That doesn't mean that you're an argumentative person. It means that you have an argument that you wish to support with facts. And third, your thesis should be significant. It's one thing to mention something and have an opinion about it, like ice cream is terrible. That's an opinion. Not everybody would agree with it. And it is specific. It has to do with ice cream. The problem is that people might say, so what? Find something else to eat for dessert. Your statement should be significant in the sense that it should open people's eyes. It should make them think in a new way. Now let's talk about this thesis for this paper in particular. You're writing what amounts to a comparison-contrast essay. You're comparing a pre-Christian or non-Christian worldview to a Christian worldview, or a post-Reformation Christian worldview. And the reason that we used the Reformation as a dividing line is because things changed at that moment. The people in God's church were encouraged to read His Word directly for the first time in generations and even millennia. And so it was a true turning point. And Concordia University focuses on the work that God did through Martin Luther, not because Martin Luther was somehow larger than life, but because he was a humble instrument that God used in a profound way. So, what you need to understand here is that you're comparing two ways of looking at the world, and you're using the lens of your metaphor or your theme. Some of you are a little confused about how some of the words on the list for topics can be metaphors, and I understand that maybe in your mind you should think of it as a theme, and this theme is something that is treated one way in the pre-Christian world and another way in the Christian world. So, when you contextualize in your thesis statement, you need to build a box for what you're trying to say. And the box is the situation that you are inspired by. And specifically in this class, it is the Iliad. And then later on it will be the Pilgrim's Progress. Those are the works of literature that we're focusing on. You also need to bring in what you're learning in your theology class, which is contextualized in the Bible. So don't forget to mention that your analysis is related to the context of the Iliad. And it's very easy to do. In your thesis statement, you just start out by saying, in Homer's Iliad, or in the Iliad. That is an easy way to do it. There are other ways, and I would encourage you to feel free to experiment by moving parts around a little bit, but make sure that you have the components that are emphasized in this short presentation. So mention the text or text that you're comparing, and remember that your focus is on the worldview of the Greeks, the worldview of Christians. This is pretty short and sweet, but don't forget to mention your metaphor. The metaphor that you have chosen, you should have had approved by your theology professor. And that metaphor then is something that you're going to use to guide all of your literary analysis assignments and most of all your culminating paper. So make a statement. In your one-sentence thesis statement, you should include your metaphor so it's clear what you're talking about. And one thing you don't want to do is to simply state that your metaphor is present. So don't say, if your metaphor is marriage, don't say, in the Iliad, marriage is addressed. That would not be a clear thesis statement because you're not going a step further and having an opinion about how marriage is treated in the Iliad. Okay, now this is the heart of your thesis statement. It must come down to this. In your single sentence thesis statement, you must focus on the change that takes place from pre-Christian or non-Christian to the Christian. When you do this, you're essentially setting up a comparison-contrast essay because you're going to talk about what a non-Christian worldview is related to your metaphor and what a Christian worldview is related to your metaphor. So you're going to compare the worldviews. And finally, since the worldview is changing over time, that's why it becomes a before and after approach. So there's the view of your metaphor before Christianity, and then after means in light of the Christian revelation that God has given to us. I hope that this helps. I hope you remember again that it is a one-sentence thesis statement. It should not be a paragraph. So boil it down and make sure you have these main components. And there really are three main components: the context, the metaphor, and the change. And another way generally to think about it is make it specific, make it an opinion, and make it significant. God bless you.